Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Spider-Man 2099 Exodus, Part A, Alpha. These titles are so long. Been waiting for this to come out because I'm a huge fan of the Spider-Man 2099 universe, Miguel O'Hara, all that good stuff, Alchemax, Something new in here, the Cabal. I don't remember ever reading this before. Maybe it's the first appearance. I freaking know. But this happens in here. And this was for the most part, a really good story. This was a very solid comic book. I don't know how the future of this story is going to go because they decided to start switching around the team and whatnot. But for now, the team is writer Steve Orlando. The artist is Paul Fry. The colors are done by Niraj Menon, and VC's Joe Caramagna does the letters. The cover artist is Lanil Francis Yu and Sunny Lowe, and there's a couple variant covers out there. Actually, it looks like there's a few of them, so 3 of them, yeah. This is, and the original Spider-Man was created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. Anyway, this was, for the most part, a really good comic book. I enjoyed this, the first page of this, holy crap, I had to reread this at least 4 times. If it wasn't 4, it was more than 4. Like, I reread this first page so many times. It was so violent. A father walking with his little daughter, and some creep comes up and cuts off his arm, and it's very bloody. Holy crap, it is freaking bloody. And it's like, did this really just happen? Did this really just happen? You want to talk about grabbing somebody's attention hardcore? Boom. And yet somehow, this book goes from a very, I don't know about basic street crime, but a very violent street crime to all of a sudden, the fate of the world is at balance. I mean, how do you do something like that, right? You have to give it to Steve Orlando to be able to pull off something like that. Look, at the end of the day, aside from the fact that this is already an established universe, Steve Orlando knows what he's doing as far as, the history of these characters and that character and whatnot. I feel that if Orlando has any problems, it's that he takes up too many writing positions where, for comic books where he's not creating the story. He's just told, hey, we want this to happen. We want a comic book where such and such and such and such and such happens. He's like, okay, cool. And then he just has to kind of make it his own. When this guy just gets hired and told, hey, go and do something really awesome, he can do it, right? I forget who the writer was, the white Muslim chick who was doing the Wonder Woman comic book for a while, but it was a really horrible run. She admitted later on that she wasn't really into it and whatnot, but not being into it is not the same as making an actual bad comic book. And she made a very genuine, like an offensive comic book, you know what I'm saying? Trying to be inclusive and failing miserably. But it is what it is. And then Steve Orlando was just like all of a sudden, hey, we need you to do a Wonder Woman comic book. Take over because G. Willow Wilson, that was her name, of Ms. Marvel fame, right? Said, hey man, come over here and do this. And he's just like, okay, sure. What do you want me to do? I don't know. Just do something. Okay, sure. And he came up with something, and just his stuff like that he just pulled from out of his butt was better than what was being written before. I mean, that right there is for me like a definitive Steve Orlando thing, right? The guy knows what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, if there's any real problem with Steve Orlando's writing, it's not really his writing. It's the idea that he takes jobs where people are like, hey, we want you to write a comic book where such and such and such happens and lead up to this. And he's like, oh, yeah, sure, I could do that. And he'll just put his flavor on it, but it's not really his writing. It's not his ideas. You know what I'm saying? He's just writing someone else's ideas. He's practically a ghostwriter at that point, right? Not fun. And it's usually one of the reasons why I see Steve Orlando in a comic book and I'm like, I'm probably not going to read this because, yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's not really him. This, I'm sure that's exactly what happened in this comic book, but he made this comic book so damn good, right? From the very beginning to the end, it's almost like a Rocky story. Remember how Rocky started off as just some bum, you know what I'm saying? Some guy, and then all of a sudden at the end, he's fighting the heavyweight champion of the world, right? And like the colors change, the lighting changes, everything on in the movie changes. And it's like, this isn't the same movie I started watching. Is it? Is it really? I have a slight similar vibe with this comic book. In one issue, we went from street crime to a freaking celestial falling from the sky. I know that's not his idea either. That's a Jason Aaron thing. But holy crap, dude! This for a Spider-Man 2099 book, this worked really well. he really gets the character. I always like Miguel O'Hara and Doctor Doom 2099. I love those two 2099 books, those universe books. He's really got the feel down. The idea that he could terrify someone by threatening to drain them of their blood, suck their blood dry and all this stuff. Like, oh, like, I love that. The idea that he does a 89 Batman thing and I'm going to throw you off here, but you're going to bungee down. That stuff like that. Little stuff like that. Little Orlandoisms that he does. It's not even like exclusive to him. It's just like he has a way of doing stuff like that, which gives you a feel for something else that you love, that kind of transfer that love of the outside stuff, be it nostalgia or something else, and then allows you to incorporate into this book in and of itself, right? The story was very fluid. There were some things that that you might struggle to understand. I know I struggled to understand some things here. I can't go in this as an engineer and say, oh, let's go, because Orlando is not an engineer. I doubt Orlando is an engineer or has a background in engineering. So some of the stuff he's going to say is like, that's not real, but it's a comic book. You got to let that stuff go. But sometimes things seem a little overconflated. It was hard to read some of the tech stuff in here. I'm like, I don't understand what's happening. And some things I was able to figure out later through the reading. Some things I just said, whatever. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? I'm just going to read the comic book and enjoy what I do understand. You know what I'm saying? But there were a few moments, just moments, like moments out of time, that I said, I don't understand what I'm reading, and I'm just going to move on. That can get frustrating. But again, this isn't his story. He's just writing it. He's writing someone else's story. He's ghost writing, right? Speaking of ghost writing, there's also a ghost writer in this comic book also. And this is where I come into the art. I love Paul Fry, right? In case you guys don't know, what do you call it? He's in the Comic Book University Facebook group. If you want to go there and find it and have conversations with us and whatnot. He's there. You can talk to him directly. Saying he's a good guy. And he's there mostly because there's a bunch of other writers and artists there also. All good people. But there's the main reason why he's there is because he wanted to play the one of my Marvel Face Rip games with me. So you can see him in a whole season of that and actually see, some of this guy's ideas and whatnot, and some of his art for the sake of conversation. But he is a good artist. I did enjoy talking. I always do enjoy talking to this guy a lot, because he's a good artist and because he's got a lot of this background, this knowledge behind him. He really puts his heart into what he draws. He's already drawn for DC a lot, and he's been doing a couple things for Marvel lately. And much like with Ario Anindito, I see this guy as becoming a mainstream in Marvel. If Marvel's smart, they will snatch this guy up. Like, you read this comic book, you see the art in this comic book, and he's ready. He's more than ready to, start doing his thing and actually have a permanent series. Like, think of a book, get a writing together, let this guy do his thing. Hopefully this does turn into an actual Spider-Man 2099 continuous series. I would love to see that. I think a lot of us would like to see that. And I think I've already got a good pick for an artist right now, genuinely. It's not just because I know the guy. But if you want an idea of what kind of artist he is, read this comic book. And here's an example. He's not afraid to do something dangerous. There's a part in here where I'm reading the comic book and the art is, I'm admiring the art as I'm reading this comic book. It's really beautiful. It really fits, right? And I have to say also Niraj Menon, really great job with the colors because it felt very futuristic, which is exactly what a 2099 comic book should feel, right? I think. That's just me. Really good feel for this comic book. Holy crap. It really felt like this belonged, because you could do all the Jack Kirby, linear and then suddenly chaotic chaotically linear stuff that Jack Kirby would do with like his New God stuff and his Eternal stuff, right? All these crazy designs, the super engines that he would make, right? But if the colors are horrible on it, that Kirby crackle isn't going to pop. It's just going to be there. Niraj does a really good job of enhancing the art that Fry already does on this, right? But there's a part where both of them together, they get to this part where all of a sudden Ghost Rider, it's on the cover, it's not a spoiler. Ghost Rider makes an appearance in this. and I right away look at it and say, this doesn't look good. More specifically, this doesn't look right. Because it was drawn well, colors on it were well, but it didn't look right. Like, this doesn't look like Ghost Rider. Something doesn't feel right about this. Very brave to do something like that. Why? It's not just bad art, no. It's because it doesn't take very long to realize it's not actually Ghost Rider. Later on, when you see Ghost Rider actually appear, it's like, it's my Ghost Rider. And it looks good. Hair in my mouth. Oh, I got it. You want to see it? No, you don't. It was really good. But that first time, I was just like, that's not good. So they purposefully did Ghost Rider to not look right, so that later on when he actually appeared, and then you understand what happened. And it's like, I don't want to spoil the comic book, what actually happens in the comic book, but it was impressive. Like a very basic thing that was done so that the art can really shine. And it was a little thing that I noticed. I'm just like, that was ballsy, right? That was, Fry's got some cojones, okay? That was good, the way that he took that risk, because he could have just made it look good and just said, but guess what? No. He did it, and it was brave to do that kind of art. I was impressed by it. All in all, this comic book is really good. Usually I'm not a fan of, like a different cover artist from the interior art, but I understand. I get it. Saying in this particular case, there's going to come a point, though, where I'm going to say it's not acceptable anymore and Fry needs to be doing the cover art. I'm just saying. I'm just putting that out there. In the meantime, this was really good. Between the writing and the art, I don't know what the rest of the series is going to be like. This is an alpha. There's going to be a 1 through 5, and then there's going to be an omega. So 6 more books coming, 7 books in total, right? Unfortunately, they're switching up the team a little bit in the next book. I believe that Orlando's going to be writing it. Don't quote me. Unless I'm right, they quote me all day. But the art team is going to be different. It's like, this is a problem that Marvel does all the time also. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? You caught me on this book. You got me on this book. Now I'm going to read it. It's going to look something. And maybe the art will be fantastic in a different way also. But it's the idea that you're changing my mindset now. And I don't want my mindset to be changed. With all due respect. If you set me on something, don't change it. Right? It's like making a white character black or a straight character gay or whatever in a comic book. Why would you do something like that? Why would you change something like that? Why would you do that unnecessary, taking me out of where I'm at and change it just for the sake of what? Of what? What was the purpose of this? For that, we understand what the purposes are, and they're bad purposes. You know what I'm saying? You're not genuine about what you're doing. You're just doing something for the sake of, look, we're inclusive. No, you're not. You're just changing things up, and you're trying to look inclusive. There's a big difference between an optic and what you're actually doing. You know what I'm saying? Tokenism. It's pointless. In this particular case, I just don't like the idea they're changing the art team up, because now it's going to look like a radically different book. And if it's the same story, why would you want to take us out of that? Maybe it's just me. But whatever. It is what it is. I'm going to check out the next book. If it's any good, then I'll keep on reading. If it's not, I won't. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But yeah, like I said, I could forgive not having the interior artist be the cover artist also. But it's very hard to forgive the idea that you're gonna have a story. There's 7 issues to this story, and the first issue is this, and then you're gonna change it to later. That's not necessary. Stuff like that just isn't necessary. Anyway, that's the comic book. If you guys enjoyed, go out and grab this. It's good. See if you're gonna like the whole story. If you're gonna get on trade paperback, I might do a spotlight and story on the whole trade if the issues are any good and they keep me going. We'll talk about it then. Like the video, watch an ad. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.